All right, I give up. It's been a couple of days, and I think it was the last straw when my dad texted me and is like, "You got to bring the intro back. It's your trademark." So I'm compromising where I have most of the intro back. I have the song. I get how people can like get used to that song playing, and it's weird without it. But I'm making it shorter a little bit, and I'm taking out the Destiny card as I cover more stuff, and sometimes I leave the Destiny card in. It doesn't make sense. Anyway, I don't know. I don't care that much about metrics, so screw it. I'll keep it as a trademark for the time being. Anyway, so I wanted to talk about something specific today, something that probably wouldn't make for a great article given that this game is kind of traffic poison at the moment, a month away. I'm talking about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and how I am hoping maybe it could be at least a temporary replacement for Destiny as Destiny scales way, way, way down and is just doing very minor things for the next 5 months. Suicide Squad comes out in late January, like just January 29th or something, and then there's early access for $100, and I don't know, somewhere around there, a couple weeks away. And it is a live service looter shooter. It is one that is very much not Destiny in the traditional sense, but there is a game that it most closely channels another superhero looter shooter that ended up being kind of a terrible idea, which was Marvel's Avengers. And I have been pretty negative about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League since it was announced. I think pretty much everybody was hoping that after 9 years or whatever it's been, that Rocksteady would come out with some new game that was like an Arkham game, maybe not Batman, but everyone wanted Batman Beyond, I guess. But some superhero game where there was the rumored Superman game, which actually did not exist apparently, but it would have been cool if Rocksteady made a really good Superman game, or Wonder Woman, or The Flash, or whatever. Just pick your favorite DC hero, and they probably could have made a good single player game out of it. Instead, we are doing the live service co-op 4-person team thing. This is somewhat similar to Redfall a little bit, a single player studio going and doing a co-op live game that obviously went disastrously for Redfall, but the closest comparison is Marvel's Avengers, which didn't go great, but they did do live service stuff for like almost 2 years, I think it was in the end. But I want to talk a little bit about what I am hopeful for with this game. And my biggest point of hope that is like tangible are all these people playing the closed alpha that are like, actually, this is really fun. And actually, this kind of changed my mind. And actually, I'm pre-ordering it. So I haven't played the closed alpha because I couldn't talk about it under NDA, which is why I didn't play the closed alpha. But all of that kind of offsets the videos I've seen that just look like, is this really gonna be good? I don't know. Like it seems kind of weird. And then there were these story leaks that like were like kind of true, and then like parts of them were made up, and like I don't know. I've read a lot of those, kind of involuntarily, some voluntarily, but I don't know. I don't think that's make or break for me. I want to go through kind of the different things that are parallels to Avengers that I think Suicide Squad can hopefully learn from. And, I like Crystal Dynamics, and they did a good job with the Tomb Raider games, but Rocksteady is like really, really, really top tier when it comes to what they did with the Arkham games. Like that was like a genre defining, an entry, not in just superhero games, but like we had all these other games copy that style of combat forever. Everybody loved the storylines of those games. Like there's a ton of history there where I think we have to have a little faith in Rocksteady being able to deliver this even in a different format, even if it's not the game we wanted to make. There's rumors it's not the game they wanted to make either. It's kind of a live service mandate from WB. I don't know if that's true. But Avengers did a few things right. And namely, what I thought about Avengers was that they really did combat right. And they did the character kits right. It did feel really fun to play most of the characters in that game and spend time leveling each of them and getting to level 50, and maxing out their powers and abilities and finding different play styles. Doing specific builds was a little harder as time went on, and the gearing aspect of this was not great. But in terms of actual combat, I think they did a very good job with the vast majority of heroes feeling like they should play in a game like this, and how they were so differentiated from one another, and each one felt like a unique experience. I'm a little more concerned about this with Suicide Squad because this has turned all of these characters into characters that wield guns, which has pros and cons. And for some, it makes sense. Deadshot, maybe Harley. Others less so, like Captain Boomerang and King Shark. And it seems kind of a way to wedge loot in there. But this is also Rocksteady, and even if it's this kind of arena-based, hoppy, aroundy combat, that is one of the aspects that people are saying is surprisingly fun. And another thing that I think Suicide Squad will have as an advantage over Avengers is that it has this sprawling version of Metropolis, this giant open world that Avengers did not have. Avengers is not an open world game really in the least. There were zones that were sort of big. You could like go to different places and solve a little mini game and like find a chest or find some like mini boss enemy and kill them, but they were just sort of points A to point B, and then you'd go into a series of much smaller rooms fighting, robots and AIM agents and like all these really specific things in very small arenas for the most part. And Suicide Squad has the ability to take, a potentially good combat system and open that up a lot in a way Avengers did not. I think Avengers would have been a much better game if it had actual true open world aspects to get through. And if they create a world here that's like Arkham City, that is a really great start, I would say, in terms of, at least making a setting for this that is enjoyable to play in. And that gives me some hope that, given what we've seen from their open world's ambitions in the past, and given their gameplay, and given what was kind of a failing of the Avengers, the arenas to play in, hopefully this could be a benefit here. And in terms of loot design, this is what I'm kind of curious about, because one of the big problems with Avengers was, you could make some okay builds with different loot. There were essentially 4 pieces of loot and like an artifact, and like that was it. But like, because it was a superhero game and we were using like Avengers, they couldn't do real loot. They had to do loot that never appeared on your character. Not ever. It was just loot that had stats and it had some buffs sometimes, but your character would always look the same in terms of the gear you got, and the only way you would switch was through costumes you unlocked, or of course, costumes you bought at the store. And well, we know Suicide Squad will also have Battle Pass costumes and a cash shop and all that stuff, which is not surprising, albeit, as annoying as it might be. They at least are going to have specific loot that feels like loot. And that is where the gun thing comes into play, where they at least have this sort of like Borderlands thing going for them, where they're going to have a lot of different weapons with a lot of different specific abilities. And as you're using them in combat, like, you will see the gun you're using. It's not like finding new Hulk fists or, Thor hammer grips and things like that. Like, you will actually see this loot and be able to use it. They've also talked about like set items in the game, where there's like a Bane set you wear to get like specific Bane Venom powers. And I'm assuming that is like something your character will actually wear that has like Bane VFX or something. I don't know if there's a transmog system in this, but I kind of imagine there is. But if so, that would mean there is like in-game armor to earn and wear, which is also another like good thing you want in a looter. And games that do not have that, I think, suffer a little bit, where even Borderlands, I think, suffers from only really having guns as visible loot to farm. But, it's worked out for them. And so, well, I do understand the pushback about Suicide Squad putting guns in characters' hands that don't really need them. I'm hoping at least that, like, the kind of superpowers they give these characters, like, Boomerang does use his boomerang for his abilities and stuff, and his boomerang-based powers, like even if he is shooting guns, I'm hoping that will work in conjunction with the guns in a way that doesn't feel stupid. Like, I'm probably planning to main Harley just because she's like my favorite character out of those 4 characters. Like, I don't know, but this might be like Avengers where you really do want to jump around between them. But I am hopeful that maybe the guns and gearing will work better than maybe we're initially seeing, and better than these like gear screens that are like kind of parodies of looter shooters look. I think there could be some promise there. Um, in terms of the story, I think we'll see. I think the Avengers story is sort of a low bar. Like Avengers was sort of cheating because they did this whole single player storyline that was like about Kamala reassembling the old Avengers that were like kind of lost, and Steve is supposedly dead, like he always is supposedly dead. Um, and it was all about like coming together to fight MODOK. MODOK, not the best villain at the end of that story, but it was an okay single player campaign. And then there was not really a coherent storyline after that. Bits and pieces of one maybe, but that was sort of it. Where here, I don't know yet. It is kind of an interesting idea, I think, to spread out all these boss fights that are going to be against, members of the Justice League. I am hoping that they kind of channel what Arkham did. Arkham had some really creative boss fights over the different games, and it does seem like this is an opportunity for that to kind of repeat, albeit with flipping it on its head with specific counters to specific heroes and stuff. And story wise, like, oh no, we're killing the Justice League and like ruining the Arkhamverse, and like how could Batman go out like that? And like without getting into any spoilers, I don't even know the answer to this, but like, do you really think that we're gonna end this game where the Suicide Squad has murdered all of the Justice League members and we never see any Justice League members again, no matter what game they make in the future? Come on, like this is a comic book game. There's gonna be some bullshit thing they come up with that this was all a dream or a simulation or freaking time travel, like to fix it. There's going to be something. So I'm not really worried about that aspect of it. I'm a little worried about the humor. I think we've really overplayed the Suicide Squad. I think at this point, between the two different movies, one really bad, one pretty good, and then Peacemaker more or less might as well be the Suicide Squad. But like now we have a game, and I just haven't really liked the humor I've seen in the trailers so far. But I am curious about the overall storyline and what they're going to do with this Justice League thing. And I think at baseline, it will at least probably be better than Avengers. It will probably be better than something like, I don't know, a Destiny 2 campaign, which are not usually the most coherent things to process. For me, I think the biggest question mark is if this is going to be a game that plans to be a live service and then can actually effectively operate as a live service. This, far and away, has been the thing that all of the failed looter shooters out there have not been able to manage. And the prime examples of this are Anthem and Marvel's Avengers, I would say, where both of those games had these like really elaborate roadmaps of future content they had planned and like all of these significant updates that had a very fixed timeline. And then they missed all of them. Far and away, rarely ever hit any of those goals in anything approaching a timely manner. The problem with both of those games is they launched and then there was a ton of stuff to fix. Not just like bugs, but like entire core systems had to be overhauled, and they spent loads and loads of time just fixing, quality of life, system change, all of this stuff, to the point where stuff just kept getting pushed back. I think Anthem came out with a roadmap for like the first couple of months, and they hit like one item on the roadmap out of like 15. And then Avengers had this big plan where it's like, oh, we're going to have Kate Bishop out, then Hawkeye, then Black Panther within like the first 3 months of the game. And it took like a year and a half for Black Panther to arrive. And their hero schedule went from like crazy ambitious to a hero every couple of months to like barely, they did get heroes out by the end, but the scheduling was all over the place. Some of them were just carbon copies of other heroes, like switching genders. Like it did not realize its potential. And Suicide Squad is doing the same thing. They are adding new missions, they're adding new loot, they're adding new zones, and they are adding new Suicide Squad members, many of which are already being data mined. They're adding a lot of new Suicide Squad members if the leaks and rumors are to be believed. And to do that effectively, they are going to have to launch in a coherent state that does not need a bazillion months of fixing. If they can hit the ground running, if they can launch a game that does not have like crazily significant issues or technical problems or whatever at launch, and then stick to a roadmap and get the content out on time, that is the way to craft a successful game in the live space. And many multiplayer games have this kind of easy because it's not easy, but like it's easier than others, where do a battle pass, do some new maps, do a map overhaul, do a couple of new guns, and you're kind of on that routine basis. Destiny 2, we can roast Destiny 2 for various things, but there is a reason it is the live service game that has lasted a decade. The PvE and PvP, but heavily PvE game, where they have gotten on this consistent schedule of producing a lot of content in very short fixed windows of time. And what's happened in the last few years is the final season has been extended because of a delay to these large expansions. But we don't even know if Suicide Squad's having large expansions. But if they can stay on a quarterly schedule like Destiny and put out content like when they say they're going to put out content consistently, and have those new additions and not have these giant delays where no one knows what's coming, no one knows when they're actually going to deliver on their promises and timelines, that will be something to really work in its favor. I don't have a ton of faith that they'll be able to do that, at least initially, just because I've seen this fail so many times before. And even though this is Rocksteady and we really trust Rocksteady to be good, based on past things, maybe the trailers have put you off that a bit, but just because they were going to making Arkham games time and time again, I've written this so many times, even about Suicide Squad, where we have seen so many really talented single player developers try to do a live service game and it just failed miserably. Like I've talked about Avengers, Anthem, Redfall's in that category. They still have DLC characters they're supposed to be making. Battleborn, when Gearbox tried to do that and then that failed, so they went back to Borderlands. This has happened many times, and these successes are not usually from studios that have been just pure single player. Oh, and Naughty Dog had its game canceled before it even came out. Bungie at least had multiplayer PvP experience with years and years of Halo, so that was something they were able to launch alongside it and not have it be totally new territory. These other games like Call of Duty making Warzone, they've had multiplayer experience for player-to-player combat forever. So making Warzone in an open map is not like the biggest stretch in the world. And, Respawn making Apex when they made Titanfall, et cetera, et cetera. Respawn is kind of an exception because they're good enough. They can make awesome single-player games like Jedi Fallen Order and also really good multiplayer games. But they are one of the only exceptions in the industry I've ever seen do that. I would love for Suicide Squad to be good. I have been pretty negative about it, but I'm starting to shift based on alpha feedback and based on really just hopes and dreams that I would like to play another good looter shooter full of DC characters that I think are fun. I would much rather it be a good game than a bad game. That is always my thought when it comes to different games, no matter how I think they look. I would rather play a good game than a bad game, and a game I like over a game I don't. Yes, I can roast bad games and whatever, but it is exhausting to actually play them, and I would just rather have it be good. I would rather have it be, a new game I can cover consistently that people are enjoying to play and talk about. That would be ideal. I don't know whether this will happen. I am more optimistic, I guess, than I used to be, and I think this is going to have some significant changes over Marvel's Avengers and the big failure that was. Hopefully taking the good aspects and keeping those and fixing the live service stuff. They had to have been observing what happened with that, and they have to know the kinds of problems they'll run into. So we'll see what they actually come up with in the end, but I am hoping that this can be a good Destiny downtime game, sort of in the same looter genre to tide me and other people over. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I think they're going to have more Suicide Squad reveals of things and such pretty soon with different videos and whatever. But I think they need to have an open beta. If it's really as good as the alpha people say, it would do it'd be a huge advantage to give people the chance to play it and change their minds if that is something it's able to do. No announcements about that, and the game comes out in 3 weeks, so I'm not going to hold my breath. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, and talk to you soon. Take care.